Right, so from what you told me, and correct me if there are any bits of this where I have not recorded or remembered accurately what you told me, but in 2019 you had a tear of your meniscus in your knee. Mm-hmm. And so following that meniscal tear, you had a meniscal repair.
Yeah.
But also at that point in time, you stopped playing football.
Yes, yeah.
Which had been a big part of your life until then.
Very big, yeah.
Now, unfortunately, that repair was unsuccessful. Sorry. And so, following that in 2023, you had a partial meniscectomy. Yeah, that's right so far. Okay, and so following that, because you were obviously unable to do the other sports that you'd previously done,
yes,
you had a relatively rapid increase in cycling load.
Yes, yeah.
And so you'd built up to about 100 kilometres, but what you noticed is that you had gluteal stiffness initially after quite long rides.
Yes, this was pre the second surgery that I noticed. Got up to 100k.
Right. That was before this?
That was before the second surgery, when I was mostly running but doing a bit of cycling on the side.
Right. Right, okay. Probably that doesn't influence us too much, because the key bit to take out of all of that is that then one night you did a 40-kilometre ride. Mm-hmm. And following that, you developed this low back plus gluteal pain and stiffness that didn't go away.
Yeah, correct.
And then over time came on after shorter and shorter rides.
Yes.
And so because of that, you then went and saw multiple physios. Mm-hmm. And you saw a couple of sports physicians. Plus you tried some medications. And many of those had aspects of helpfulness, but overall, the problem persisted.
Yeah, it would be times of improvement for weeks or short months, and then it would flare up again and I'd be back to more or less square one.
Yes. Yeah. So that low back pain and stiffness had a pattern whereby you would have these flares that might happen after relatively low levels of load, but could last for up to 4 weeks.
Correct, yeah.
Which would then limit quite a lot what you're able to do over that time. And also, I mean, when you're not doing anything, it does settle with rest.
Pretty much entirely, yeah.
But you told me that it does sort of remain sort of iffy feeling.
Yes, it does. It'll sort of, there'll be some days where my back feels normal, some days where if I've had a long day of lectures or standing, it'll be like, oh, it's a bit sore, I need to go and put some heat on it and lie down.
Yeah.
But never to the level that it would be after I tried cycling, and it would be a flare up.
Yeah, so I mean the key thing for what is aggravating it at the moment is cycling continues to be very limited, and I think you said you could only do sort of 4 to 6k of that before aggravating, but also with longer periods of sitting and standing.
Yep.
That could also be problematic. But you'd also found that it was better with running.
Yes.
And with walking. And with lying down. Got that so
sounds
far?
good. Yeah.
Cool. Oh, and also you told me that it was worse during periods of stress.
Yes, that's
as
correct.
well. Okay, and so that left you trying to work out what the problem was.
It did.
And so there was an initial hypothesis that it might have been due to a disc that was putting pressure on a nerve that was going to your buttock.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a reasonable theory until the point whereby your MRI suggested that there was no good evidence to support it.
Yeah, definitely.
And so then there was also a theory, or wondering whether you went too hard too fast on the bike, and that put stress on your body, and that resulted in an inflammatory process. But at the same point, settling down and taking that load away didn't really result in that settling, and the medications hadn't caused that to settle much either.
Yeah,
Yep.
correct.
And then there was also the wondering whether or not you had bad posture on the bike. But the problem with that as a hypothesis is when you changed your posture, you didn't change your pain.
Yeah.
So leaves more questions than answers in terms of what's getting on. But the key thing, I guess, for you is it continues to feel like it's vulnerable, which makes you cautious about doing things that increase load, and particularly with things like heavier lifting. You're worried that might cause some more significant injury going forwards.
Definitely.
Does that capture what you told me around that process of what's gone on so far and how you've tried to make sense of it and where the roadblocks you've hit?
I'd say so. Like initially, I thought, and all of the physios thought, it was just a musculoskeletal injury. There was some structural damage, but then as the pain persisted for months and months and it didn't go away, it sort of didn't follow the expected pattern of that sort of injury. And then I was sort of thinking, what could this be? Because it didn't make sense with things I understood about pain and musculoskeletal injuries. And then that's when I came to you.
Yeah, and I mean the key things that stand out, I guess, in terms of trying to make sense. One, there wasn't a traumatic event at any point in that cycle to cause any sort of acute tissue disruption. It was something that sort of had built up gradually over time, but got more and more sensitive over time.
Yes.
Even though your load was decreasing, rather than you just having some stiffness after 100 Ks, it then went to a flare that didn't settle after 40 Ks, goes to flares that last for up to 4 weeks after 4 to 6 Ks. And so that ability for the tissues to take load seems to be continuing to go down, despite the fact that you're not continuing to load them at anywhere near the same levels.
Yeah, that's right.
Excellent. So other than those things that we've just touched on there, are there any other parts of that process that have stood out to you or that haven't made sense, or some things that you start to, when you reflect on that, ideas you have for things that might be opportunities?
Opportunities in terms of?
How we might go about solving your problem?
I think reflecting on it, seeing, because at this point in my life I was moving from Dunedin back to Auckland for a summer, then to Wellington. So I saw a whole array of different physios, and that meant they all treated it as a new problem. So no one sort of got the picture of it persisting and not following the musculoskeletal cycle. So it sort of delayed that process of thinking, hey, maybe this isn't what it seems. That would be the main thing from that,
Yeah, so looking at more that big picture and how we can put all of that information together to come up with a more comprehensive plan than just the fighting the fires or doing the trying to fix bits of the problem without really understanding that whole.
Yeah, and I think I went into this having had various muscle strains and 2 meniscal surgeries before, and so I had a context of going in thinking this is probably just another structural thing,
Yes.
like all of my previous issues have been, and so I wasn't really aware that it could well not be, and it wasn't what it was just what it could have been, sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Let's leave that one